another one. Yet again, I'm Poop D,
And I'm Pimp D.
and we them Harris boys. And tonight, we're going to bring you the most savage NBA fights of all time. Who you think is the best NBA?
Malice in the Palace.
No, I ain't talking about the best fight or where. I'm just saying, who you think the best fighter is?
There's a black belt and Brazilian. I forgot his name. I forgot what the team he played for.
That don't mean nothing when you get
Black
close.
belt and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, that might be something different than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, you put you on the chokehold.
Yeah, but I'm talking about back then. Who do you think was the best fighter back then? You think Charles was the best fighter back then?
I don't know. I wasn't alive back then.
Oh, you seen the videos? You seen the videos? With Charles Barkley or Charles Oakley? Y'all comment down below what y'all think. Huh?
Charles Oakley was stronger.
Okay. But before we get to this video, you know what we need y'all to do? We need y'all to subscribe
To both channels and my channel.
Yes. And we need you to
Like,
hit the like button, and we want you to hit that bell, make it go ring, and that'll be every time we do a video, you'll get a notification and let y'all know that our video is just posted. And we want y'all to comment, give us some suggestions on what we're gonna do, or what we should look at. And another thing that we're gonna be talking about in the future is when we get to 100 subscribers, we're gonna give out $100 gift card to Amazon
our cash out.
or Cash App, whatever you want.
You know, whoever gets the lucky runner.
Yes.
We get to 100.
When we get to 100 subscribers.
And
So,
subscribe to our podcast channel.
yeah,
Podcast coming every Wednesday.
yeah. So
Okay, look out for that.
yeah, just keep a lookout for it. When we get to 100 subscribers on this page, we're gonna be giving out $100.
Yeah.
So let's get started on this savage NBA fights of all time. Hit it, maestro.
When older NBA players such as Charles Barkley or Scottie Pippen talk about the modern NBA, they often romanticize their era and believe that the basketball they played was better and that they would kill the players that play today. Glorification of players from the 90s, post-ups over three-pointers, or saying that players today wouldn't be as effective if they played in their era can often portray the ex-players turned analysts as grumpy old men. However, when it comes to the old players bashing today's style of play, with one thing we can all agree entirely. The game was a lot more physical in their era. When a player would come to the lane for a layup, he would have to pay the price. It was almost like a toll that you pay on the highway. If you want to pass through here, you'll pay. And payments were dealt in blows and punches to head and body. While basketball players today have to rely on skill to survive in the league more than ever, in the 80s and the 90s, you could survive on toughness and grit. Being rough was
Yo, that Sean Kemp dunk is like one of the best dunks of all
I
time.
knew you was gonna say something about it. I knew you was gonna say something about it.
Why? I'm telling you, that's like one of the greatest dunks. When he dunked on my man, then pushed him, then gave him the pow, pow, pow. That was like one of the savage joints, man. I wish he wouldn't.
Savage than when Shaq dunked on the white dude and pushed him and made him cry in front of the.
Oh, when he threw the ball at Shaq. Threw the ball at Shaq. He ain't want no smoke with Shaq, man. Them boys ain't want no smoke with Shaq. Yeah, I wish Sean Kemp wouldn't have fizzled out like he did, though.
No drugs.
Yeah, man, them drugs will get you. That's crazy.
Drugs
Like Lynn Bias, huh?
Said drugs and got a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, drugs and got a whole bunch of people. All right.
considered a quality, and players like Rick Mahorn, Bill Laimbeer, and Charles Oakley capitalized on that the most. Nowadays, you can't touch a guy. Even the slightest contact with a player's hand or body can result in free throws. Not only that, but the extracurricular on-court activities have been all but eliminated. NBA players today can get texts for taunting because they stared at someone with a mean face, without even saying anything. It's no wonder that players who played in the 80s and 90s think the league is soft now. This video will have a list of some of the biggest fights in the NBA history, the ones that made the league change its rules. And
You backed up when you saw Shaq?
What?
He saw Shaq and was like, oh, we gonna have to get about my
Nah,
business.
he gave him that chicken nuggets and that cheeseburger. Get that chicken nugget and that cheeseburger. Kobe was like, what? It's like, wow.
He looked over and saw Shaq and was like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and go to my bench.
and institute the quote-unquote softness in the league that we see today. While you may have your opinion about this, and like the 90s style better, it's hard to argue the results because the NBA is now more popular than ever. But if you do want to remember some of the most physical times when players truly didn't like each other, continue watching, because here are the biggest fights in NBA.
I'm gonna tell you, for being some big dudes, them NBA players do not got no aim. They just be throwing haymakers, just all out. Like they just be fighting with their eyes
Nah,
closed.
back then they just
Nah,
ran up.
hey, look, how many daggone misses dude had before he hit anybody?
Who back then?
Yeah, back then they don't throw no punches today. They probably think they gonna get arrested.
They be holding. Back then they was like, bro.
Yeah, they were fighting. They were fighting.
History. Malice at the Palace. This moment had several different ingredients that got mixed together in such a way that it formed a hurricane of violence, chaos, and a ton of bad press for the whole NBA. What was happening on the court prior to the fight was a prelude 6 months in the making. Indiana and Detroit were two teams with some history and didn't like each other. Detroit had just beaten Indiana in the conference finals the season before, on their path to the NBA title, which they won against the Lakers in 2004. So there was already a certain level of animosity between the teams before the game on November 19, 2004. Indiana had a stacked team, and they were ready to revenge the loss in the playoffs from the year before and send a message on an
You know who underrated center is?
Who?
Ben Wallace.
Oh yeah. I knew you were gonna say Ben Wallace. I knew. Yeah, but he came in and fizzled out quick though. He ain't really having no
You know he
long
went to
stay.
Union.
Yeah, I know he still live around.
He went to school with the JV coach at my school. Like, he brought him to practice one day and stuff.
Oh, he came to the practice, came up there.
Yeah.
Oh, and he always be here. He got his own gym in Richmond, so they be playing basketball games and stuff in Richmond.
a nationally televised stage, and they did precisely that. The Pacers dominated the game, and Ron Artest was leading the way with his defensive presence and physical play. With less than a minute left to play, Indiana led by 15 points. The game was basically over, and everybody was looking for the clock to run out. Everybody except Ron Artest. Artest, one of the most
Time out. Yo, they did all that with only 40-some seconds left in the game, yo.
Yeah.
That's crazy. They could just ran the clocks out, went home. Why they had to fight?
Because some other stuff happened.
I know other stuff had happened, but still 40 seconds left.
temperamental players in the league at the time waited for an opportunity to punch somebody and release the tension he felt throughout the game. When Ben Wallace attempted to score near the basket with 45 seconds left in the game, Artest clipped him with a hook that even some boxers would have looked twice. It was blatantly obvious that this was not a basketball play, and Ben Wallace retaliated. He shoved Ron with all the force from his 260-pound body, and a scuffle ensued. Other players intervened, and after some pushing and shoving, it seemed like it would end there. After all, we've seen stuff like this countless times before, but it was far from over. Ben Wallace was still mad, so he threw a towel at Artest, who was lying on the scorer's table, trying to calm himself down. This wasn't his first fight in
Reggie Miller won't play.
He got hurt.
He was in a suit. That's crazy. I just saw that.
Because he was talking about it in an interview.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
He was hurt.
Yeah.
Ron Artest crazy.
the league, and he had shown signs of psychological fatigue during games before. When the Pistons fans saw Wallace throw something at the lying Artest, they started doing the same. Cups, popcorn, and whatever else they had started flying towards the court in Ron's direction. John Green, a Pistons fan who was near the court, had a precise aim that night. Maybe a little too precise. He threw a cup of Coke with ice he was drinking at Artest and hit him in the chest with it. That was the trigger, and the moment everything turned for the worse. Ron Artest got up and started climbing towards the place where John Green was standing. A 6'7" tall basketball player with a 250-pound muscular frame, mad as a raging bull, was rushing towards the fans, with all the intention to hurt them. And he got the wrong guy. Artest didn't really know who hit him, so he chose someone from the direction the Coke flew in. He passed John Green and started choking the teenage kids standing close to him. Then, all hell broke loose. Steven Jackson came up to the stands.
I know, man. That's crazy. Yeah. You know what he said when he got back in the locker room?
What?
You think we'll get in any trouble for this?
You know he's still cool with the old white. He like friends with the old white dude.
What old white dude?
The one that actually threw the couple.
Oh, get the heck out of here!
Yeah, he cool with him now.
No.
Yeah, I wonder if he cool with that kid. That kid probably won't.
Was the kid with him though?
Nah, that was.
That's crazy. He's cool with the dude that threw the cup. Hey, but he beat the dude up that threw the cup too.
Yeah.
You ain't see the when he had him by the neck pulling him, and then he was hitting Ron Artest, and Ron Artest turned around and started hitting him.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
As well, and a fight between the fans and two basketball players was in full effect. Jermaine O'Neal also got in the stands and got involved. With teammates Jackson and O'Neal now in the stands, Artest got back on the court, and another fan confronted him there. Ron Artest punched him as well. After that moment, police started pushing the players towards the locker rooms through a huge mass of fans who also got down to the court. Pistons fans weren't really darlings either, as they were throwing more and more cups, liquor, and even chairs towards the players as they were escorted away from the court. It all went from bad to terrible to an absolute nightmare. Players who were temperamental and weren't strangers to hard fouls got into a fight that turned into a big scuffle. One cup of soda and a very precise aim from a fan had put gasoline to that fire. And it all resulted in the ugliest moment in NBA history. The game holds the record for most suspensions given by the NBA. John Green and Ron Artest were both convicted of assault. It was a bad, bad night.
Oh, so they did get charged.
I don't think they spent. I think they just had to pay money.
Oh, it was all about money anyway. But still, hey, he probably had to pay that kid probably $1 million.
I would sue.
Probably like
two.
500,000.
Two.
I'm gonna sue you for $1 million. Oh, they sell like $500,000.
I would have said, ready for my arm and my
I
back.
never did that giant. I would came in that joint like Martin. I'm all messed up mentally. I mean, because you know, mentally they can't tell if you screwed up or not.
Yeah.
I'd have been in that joint like. I don't know where I'm at. I mean, like, nobody said Ron Artest. I'm like, ooh, Ron Artest. I'll settle out of court. 500,000.
Nah, I want everything you got.
No, I ain't gonna be greedy. I ain't gonna
be greedy.
No, I ain't gonna be greedy. I might set him up on one of them plans like that baseball player got. Like, when I get like 500,000 every year for the next 20 years. You ain't gotta give me no money. I just want the interest off your money.
I just want like.
See, if you
I
got
want 75% of your next check for the next 20 years.
I want the interest off your check, off your account. So if he worth, say, $40 million, I just want the interest off the $40 million every year. You ain't gotta pay me, just pay me the interest.
That forced the league to make some rule changes regarding hard fouls, fights on the court, and suspensions. It was an end of the bully ball era that continued from the 80s and the 90s. The malicious event at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit got dubbed the Malice at the Palace, and it will be remembered forever. Hopefully, it stays the worst incident in the NBA. Heat vs. Knicks. Mourning vs. Johnson. 1998 Playoffs Game 4. This is also one event that stemmed from years of intolerance between two players, and teams with playoff history that hated each other. Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson were both big, physical dudes who used their large frames for defense, offense, and a bit of dirty work as well. The dirty was on full display during the 1998 NBA playoffs when the Heat visited the Knicks in the Madison Square Garden. During the last play of the game, Miami's Tim Hardaway attempted a three-point shot that would have brought Heat to just 2 points between the Knickerbockers if it got in. Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson were standing underneath the basket, fighting for position, and pushing each other in the process. When Hardaway's shot missed and the Knicks got the rebound, Mourning realized they had just lost the game and felt the freedom to release his frustration with Johnson, and he let it fly. One swing by Mourning, and then one by Johnson, and then another one by Mourning. They were better ball players than boxers.
Like I said, they ain't got no aim. They just...
They ain't professional boxers out here now.
It don't matter, man. Anybody can hit somebody. They just swinging like they, it's crazy.
because none of the hits fully connected, but that was also the reason why the fight continued. Both of those gentlemen failed to hurt the other guy, and they really wanted to. Everybody rushed in to stop the fight, including players, referees, and coaches. Jeff Van Gundy, New York's head coach at the time, tried to stop the fight too and got pushed to the floor. What made this fight iconic is the image of Van Gundy, who was a man of modest 5 feet and 9 inches, trying to hold on to the leg of a 7-foot Alonzo Mourning in order not to get squashed on the ground like a cockroach by men much larger than him. It was as comical as well as violent. Johnson and Mourning both got suspended for 2 games, which also shows how the NBA was much more lenient.
That shows the difference of the era. If that happened now, suspended for the rest of the season.
You think so?
Oh yeah, definitely.
No, I think it depends on
Nah,
who. I think it
they
depends
swinging
on,
punches like that. No
I think
chance.
it depends on who you are and your stout in the league. Like if LeBron got to fight like that, they wouldn't suspend him for the rest.
Oh, no, because they not making no money.
That's what I'm saying.
NBA.
That's what I'm saying.
But if Frank and some other bum got fight, then they gonna be like, it's the rest of the season. You know,
It could be true.
yeah. Because they lower in the league.
With fights in that era. The Celtics versus Bill Laimbeer. Bill Laimbeer was a member of the 1980s bad boy Detroit Pistons and one of the dirtiest players ever. He was known as a guy that will instigate things on the court, mask punches as common fouls with no intention to make a real defensive play, and try to hurt guys in general. One of his general hobbies was setting his feet under a jump shooter's landing area, so they would roll an ankle if they landed on Laimbeer's feet. Nobody in the league liked him, except Pistons fans. The Celtics hated him the most because they were bitter rivals with Detroit, and Laimbeer had several non-basketball highlights during those matchups. Both Robert Parrish and Larry Bird had separate fights with Laimbeer during the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals against the
I think he said it through face.
Larry Bird,
Detroit Pistons. In Game 4, Laimbeer slammed his body into Larry Bird with more eagerness and force than Bird thought was necessary to stop him from scoring. Both him and the Detroit big man fell to the ground, where Bird started throwing punches at Laimbeer. The commenter said, "I don't remember ever seeing Larry Bird getting as angry as I saw him there." And he was right. Bird usually never responded like this, and at that moment he was absolutely furious and wanted to keep fighting even after the refs and other players stepped between him and Laimbeer. Bird ultimately got ejected from the game. In the next game of the series, usually calm and collected center Robert Parrish
Different time. You can do that then.
You see him?
You can't do that now.
He chopped him.
He did that to get Larry Bird out the game. Because then you're going to get mad. You can't do that now because both people going to get it. Because he going to get a flavor too.
Hold on.
And then he going to get ejected for fighting.
I don't want to change the subject, but did you see them postpone the Mike Tyson Roy Jones fight?
For real?
Yeah, it's postponed until November. Roy Jones seen him hitting that bad. Nah, they said that
Because the Rona.
they said that they gonna give him more time to train and stuff so it could be fair.
Nah, so you don't get beat up.
picked up where Bird stopped in Game 4. The Chief decided that he had had enough of Laimbeer's antics and punched him straight in the face, with the approval and cheers of the entire crowd. Bill Simmons mentioned in the interview with Bird that he never felt anyone hated as much as
What?
Why he look like that now?
Who Bird?
Yeah.
He old.
He ain't that old.
Yes,
Just
he
like
is.
that.
He like 60 or something years old.
the whole city of Boston hated Bill Laimbeer that night. Chris Childs versus Kobe Bryant. Kobe is known as one of the toughest basketball players ever to play. When he was still a young buck with an afro, not everybody knew that yet. Chris Childs tested it out with 2 punches that landed on Kobe's head and got the young Mamba so angry it took 2 referees to hold him down, which they barely managed to do. Nuggets versus Knicks brawl. Another brawl got into the stands, albeit it was the courtside seats. The year was 2006, and the actors in the play were all the players from both teams. After a hard and unnecessary foul at the end of the game, there's definitely a pattern here. Several fights broke through, and everybody was fighting everybody at one point. Kermit Washington versus Rudy Tomjanovich. Remember that we told you that Mourning and Larry Johnson were bad boxers? Well, this wasn't the case for Kermit Washington, who connected a mean right hook to the head of Rudy Tomjanovich, which sent him to the hospital and ultimately ended his career. There was a big puddle of blood after.
How you get hit one time, got 2 black eyes?
Hold up.
What?
Kareem played it right there. He said he heard the hit. He said it sounded like a melon that you just drop and you just. That's how he said it sound. And they said if he sneezed once, he would be paralyzed.
No, why?
Cause he had spinal fluid dripping down his throat.
Get out of
And
here.
he
was jacked up.
He was jacked up.
Damn, I guess so.
After Rudy fell to the floor. And later on, we found out that he had spinal fluid leak out from the punch and could have died then and there. Yikes. Julius Erving versus Larry Bird. Two of the best players in the game going hard at each other in the 5th game of the season. That's a prime example of a difference in eras. Could you imagine LeBron and Steph Curry trading punches in the middle of the court now? The Celtics and the 76ers were playoff rivals, and during
Yeah. My nigga don't want no smoke with that big nigga. That nigga big, cuz. You think about that, they said that nigga 6'9". That nigga big, cuz. He damn near 7-footer.
that time, it was a regular occurrence to punch playoff rivals. A legendary photo of Bird and Irving, both holding each other's throat, was a souvenir from the game. Shaquille O'Neal versus Charles Barkley. This one is a fight that got extremely famous because it involved some of the most iconic NBA players ever, who also happened to work side by side every Thursday on Inside the NBA. The most comical duo that covers the NBA got into it in 1999, and it pretty much described the entire relationship of Chuckster and the big fella. They fought, and then they went to dinner afterwards. Charles Barkley paid. It's still pretty much
Lazy ass left. He look like Blank Man. Yeah, look at that face.
much the same now. If you watch them interact on the show, a love-hate relationship.
That's it, folks. That was great. That was pretty funny, yo.
That was funny.
Yeah, especially that lazy ass shot that Shaq just threw. And you saw that shit. And shit, Charles saw that shit come and stepped out the way and laughed at him. Nigga, throw something better than that. What's wrong with you?
Big as I don't know what you doing.
Those stinking ass left like that. I know. Then he gonna grab him by the neck and try to hold him. Help me, guys. Help me. Come on, Shaq. Do better, man. Do better. You 9 feet tall. 780 pounds. Run a 5'1".
What? That ain't fast?
Huh? For a nigga 9 feet tall is fast.
5'1"?
Yeah, or 4'1" then.
That's too fast.
No, it ain't. Nigga lightning. He big lightning. Well, it's been great. Thank you for watching our video. We want y'all to subscribe,
Like,
hit that bell,
comment.
comment. Let us know what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, what y'all want us to look at, and have a good night. Peace.
Deuces.